Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Ladarga Velazian. Coming up in today's newscast. Day 88 of the war in Gaza, and the IDF continues to gain ground, opening the door for some of the displaced Israelis to soon return home. In an historic ruling, Israel's High Court of Justice strikes down the key piece of legislation of the government's judicial reform. And ILTV hits the streets of London to hear what Brits have to say about the ongoing war and anti-Semitism. Day 88 of the war in Gaza, and the gradual shift is beginning into the next phase of the war. Northern and central Gaza are under IDF control, allowing Defense Minister Gallant to say that some residents of border communities can soon return to their homes. More from ILTV's Steve Lebovitz.
An official announcement has yet to be made, but the IDF has begun to shift gradually into the third phase of the war. In the first phase, the troops secure the land above northern and central Gaza. The second phase involves dealing with pockets of remaining gunmen, destroying terror tunnels, and gathering weapons. That process is largely completed in northern Gaza and is ongoing in the center. Stage 3 operational control to prevent the enemy from returning to its positions. In northern Gaza, the IDF released this body cam taken from a dead Hamas terrorist as Phase 2 operations continue.
כוחותינו השמידו את המחבלים ומצאו את נשקם יחד עם אמל"ח רב שנתפס. כחלק מהאמל"ח הרב שנתפס נמצא על אחד המחבלים מצלמה אשר חושפת את שיטת פעולה של האויב, שהאויב מנסה להשתמש באוכלוסייה אזרחית ולהסתוות לאזרח תמים אשר מחביא טיל מסוג RPG תחת צמיחה.
Ongoing first-phase maneuvers and intense clashes are ongoing in southern Gaza, focused on remaining Hamas strongholds and leadership in Khan Yunis, believed hiding in underground tunnels and bunkers. At the same time, IDF operational control in the north and center requires fewer forces. As a result, the army is sending home many of the reservists serving in northern Gaza. Defense Minister Gallant says advances in the war in Gaza mean that some of the Israeli communities north of the Gaza Strip that were evacuated in the wake of the October 7th attack will soon be able to return to their homes. Gallant presented a plan for that process to begin.
חזרתי כעת מתוך רצועת עזה, פגשתי את הלוחמים, הם נלחמים עם פניהם אל האויב ובגבם יישובי עוטף עזה. הם יודעים את משימתם, הם מבצעים אותה מצוין, על מנת שכאן, בעוטף עזה, החיים יחזרו למסלולם.
Gallant named the first communities whose residents can soon return home.
לפי המלצת צה"ל ומערכת הביטחון, אנחנו נחזיר בקרוב את היישובים שנמצאים בטווח של 4 ועד 7 קילומטר בצפון העוטף אל בתיהם. קבוצה ראשונה של 7 יישובים כבר נקבעה, הם קיבלו הודעות. הקיבוץ דורות שבו אנחנו נמצאים עכשיו הוא אחד מהם.
They deny the kidnapping of our children, the murder of our grandchildren, the rape of our daughters. The new Nazis we face today will stop at nothing to destroy civilization as we know it. The World Jewish Congress was created exactly for these times like this, so every Jew can fall asleep at night knowing they are safe in their own home. We are a voice for the Jewish people everywhere. We are the World Jewish Congress.
And in an historic ruling in the middle of the war, the High Court of Justice on Monday struck down for the first time in Israel's history a basic law, the one and only law to pass from this past year's judicial reform package. The court also solidified its power to strike down basic laws in certain circumstances. The details in the following report. The Israeli High Court of Justice on Monday struck down the government's reasonableness standard law, the only law from the judicial reform to have passed. The reasonableness standard bill sought to limit the court's ability to use reasonableness to evaluate and annul parliamentary decisions. 8 judges ruled to strike down the law while 7 voted against it. marking the first time in Israel's history that the court has annulled one of the basic laws. Even more, the court also issued a ruling enshrining its power and granting itself the authority to strike down basic laws in certain circumstances. Outgoing president of the High Court, Esther Hayut, said in the court's verdict that the basic law deviated from an evolving constitution and as such should be passed with broad consensus and not by a coalition majority. This decision is the culmination of a years-long debate which caused deep division within Israeli society over the power of the courts and the nature and character of Israel's constitution and democracy. And joining us now with more on the High Court of Justice ruling is Deputy Chairman of the Knesset and Likud member of Knesset, Hanoch Milwitsky. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So this is an historic ruling. The High Court has struck down the basic law for the first time, but not only that, it's essentially put to rest the issue of the legal reform and declared that it does in fact have the authority to review and strike down basic laws. What do you make of this ruling?
Well, I think it's a very poor ruling. I think it will damage the status of the Israeli Supreme Court in the public eyes. However, I think that the state we are currently in, with war going on, with maybe another front we will be facing, not in too long, we should just, it's not that important right now. It's bad, it's damaging. I can understand the very hard feelings that a lot of people have towards this ruling, but however, I think we shouldn't deal with it or do anything to counter it at the moment. We have much more important and serious issues to deal with.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't help but notice the timing of this ruling. As you said, in the middle of a war, most Israelis have, for the most part, put the legal reforms behind them or at least put them on hold. Are you concerned that this ruling will once again divide Israelis now, during a time of war?
That's, I think, our responsibility. The people sitting in the Knesset, everybody who has public influence should stand out and say, now is not the time. Now we need to be united and we need to put aside everything that divides us, especially the biggest topic that led to maybe the biggest tear we knew in our society since basically since the day Israel was established. We need to not fall into that trap. We need to be bigger than that, and we need to lead the way in public speech and in our actions to say all of this we're putting aside right now. We are dealing with what's really important, and later on we will return to argue, but argue and never go back to a place where we hate each other like we were on October 6th.
This ruling essentially undid all of the efforts of the coalition this past year. And there's been, criticism that the division caused due to the reform, in part led to October 7th. Do you have any regrets over this, or sort of, as we're looking forward to a new year, any thoughts on this?
Well, I have been, looking at my actions indeed ever since. I think every public official should do that. From all parties, all sides, nobody is excluded from him. Nobody can honestly say, my hands were not involved in this great tear we had here. And if there's anything I learned from it, is that we should never allow anything to come before the unity of the Israeli people, the wholeness of the Israeli society. This is what we need to take care firstly and mostly, and all the other things need to basically arrange themselves according to that. If we move in that direction from now on, well, I think we'll be okay. We can never go back. We can never say, well, it happened, we learned from it. Someone else did it. It's not my fault. It's their fault. No, it's everybody's fault. It's all our fault. It's my fault. And we need to do something about it. And do something about it is change the way we act, change the way we speak, and actively go towards uniting the Israeli society again.
And I want to ask, moving back to the war, today the cabinet and also the Knesset are continuing to discuss what will happen in Gaza the day after the war. Is there a consensus that's forming in the government? Because we are hearing different voices. And what can you tell us about Israel's plan for the day after?
Well, the only consensus I know about is that there's no way we're going to let any Palestinian Authority rule over there. In my opinion, there can be no sovereign Palestinian entity near our borders ever again. We need to face reality as it is. We need to take control. We need to, of course, govern the Gaza Strip security-wise for a very long time, and maybe, grow local leaderships, local families to take care of the civilian issues. But I don't think that in this generation, we will be able to reach a state where we can completely take our hands out and off of Gaza like we tried 20 or so years ago and leave. That is not an option, unfortunately, but that is not an option.
All right, member of Knesset Hanoch Nowitzki, thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Thank you.
Experience the power of truth with ILTV News. If you're looking for quality content and captivating visuals, join our news community and become an integral part of our team as we embark on a mission to unveil the real Israel, dismantling the web of lies and misinformation that surround reporting on Israel. By subscribing to ILTV News, you will not only have access to the latest updates, but you will also amplify our message, creating a ripple effect that carries the truth far and wide. Subscribe today and help reshape the narrative. Available on the web, Android, and Apple. And back to the war, the IDF announced the death of a soldier killed during fighting in the northern Gaza Strip today, bringing the toll of slain troops since the start of the ground offensive against Hamas to 173. The soldier was named as Sergeant First Class in the Reserves Amichai Ostel, 24, of the 5th Brigade 720th Battalion from Karnei Shomron. Ostel was a dual U.S.-Israeli citizen and the son of a Cleveland, Ohio family who made Aliyah to Israel. Amichai was traveling the world when he received an order to report to emergency reserve duty after the October 7th attack and immediately boarded a flight back to the country. The IDF said another 2 soldiers of the same battalion were seriously wounded in the same incident. May Amichai and all of the fallen be of blessed memory. And on Israel's other fronts, in the north, the IDF confirmed it hit military targets in Syria overnight in response to missile launches from Syrian territory. Meanwhile, on the southern front, Iran sent a warship into the Red Sea after a U.S. ship confronted its Houthi allies in Yemen, attacking merchant shipping in the critical international waterway. The U.S. and Iran could be set to face off. We hear more from ILTV's Steve Lebovitz.
The deployment of the Iranian Al-Borz warship occurs just one day after U.S. naval forces repelled a Houthi assault against a Maersk cargo vessel traversing the Red Sea, killing 10 Houthi attackers. The Iranian move comes against the backdrop of repeated missile and drone attacks against Israel from Houthi rebels in Yemen and Houthi attacks on merchant shipping in the critical international waterway. Last month, the U.S. set up a multinational naval task force for the Red Sea following a flurry of missile and drone attacks by Yemen's Iranian-backed Houthi rebels on merchant shipping in the waterway, which led shipping companies to suspend passages through the area. U.S. and allied ships are now escorting commercial vessels through the waterway. A potential attack on Houthi bases in Yemen is reportedly being considered by the U.S. The Houthis say the attacks are in solidarity with Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, intense clashes continue on the northern border with Hezbollah in Lebanon. At least 3 more Hezbollah terrorists have been killed in the South Lebanon village of Hora. The IDF carried out a series of strikes. The action followed the wounding of 5 IDF reservists in attacks near the town of Adamit along the border. Air Force fighter jets and other aircraft struck military sites, rocket launch positions, and other infrastructure belonging to Hezbollah across southern Lebanon.
And moving on, 2023 was a difficult year for Israel. We can only hope that 2024 will bring with it better news. And so joining us now in the studio with more on the year ahead is ILTV's Steve Lebovitz, host of Weekly Insider. Thanks for joining us, Steve.
My pleasure, Lidar.
So, Steve, what's in store for us in 2024? Victory over Hamas, that's for sure.
It can't be worse. First of all, my greeting on January 1st to everyone that asked was, or everyone that I came in contact with was, may I wish you a better year in 2024. 2023 was the worst year possible. 9 months of divided country. Half the country protesting, the other half saying we had to pass judicial reform, followed by the war, the worst moment in our history. So let's move forward into 2024. What we're looking at is a year that we're hoping will bring an end to warfare and will return the people back to their homes in the southern communities and in the north. I know it's a lot to ask for right now, but a year is a long time.
And also to bring the hostages back home. You know, this week's Insider also deals with the year to come. What can you tell us about this week's episodes? And did your guests have similar position sentiments to you?
Amos Asael and Dr. Gerald Steinberg, I asked them both to bring their crystal balls or magic 8-ball and shake it up, because it's really hard to know where we're going. There are a lot of unanswered questions and maybe unanswerable questions at this point. But we discuss it all. We look at what are the probabilities, where are we heading? Are we moving potentially towards a political agreement after the war is over? Let me remind you, because I'm a bit older than you, that after the 73 war, people are remembering what happened up until the Golda moment in the war, but there was a war of attrition that came after that. There was an entire period, but it ended with the Camp David agreement between Israel and Egypt. And so if we have a moment like that some years down the road, then maybe all of this somehow will yield something positive.
So as you mentioned, of course, nobody can know what the future holds in store for us. But what are some of the main issues or key questions that we're going to have to address here in Israel in the coming year?
Number one, who's going to be our leader? Because right now it doesn't seem like the public likes the current leadership of the government. Things are going to be shaken up, I would have to believe. Currently we have Benny Gantz and National Unity inside the government, but only in the war cabinet. And as soon as the war is basically declared over, that's not going to last. What's going to happen after that? Are we headed toward new elections? Many people would say that we have to. There has to be a change in leadership, but certainly it's an open question. And as we all know, Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, is a very, very talented politician.
But politics, you know, that seems far ahead into the future. You know, I think there are more pressing issues as well, such as the northern front, the southern front. What can you tell us on that?
The economy, for example. I mean, at least the Bank of Israel governor decided to lower interest rate by 0.25%. The economy is somehow holding together right now, but we know that things are going to have to be paid for. Somebody's going to have to pay. Either they're going to have to raise our taxes or they're going to have to cut services. Those are the two ways to make the budget balanced. We have a war. We're spending fortunes. There's going to be a rebuilding that's going to have to be done in the south. There's going to have to be a rebuilding in the north of these communities that have been damaged. There's a lot of money is needed, and it's not enough that the Jews of the diaspora are going to have their checkbooks out.
And so, Steve, I just want to ask, do you remain optimistic for 2024?
I remain optimistic that by the end of 2024, we will have the hostages back, those that are alive. Will be back in Israel, and I believe that most of the Jews that live in border communities will be able to go back to their homes, and Hamas will not be among us. So if that's optimism, I think it is right now, but during the course of 24, I'm optimistic, yes.
And to our viewers, don't forget to watch this week's episode of Insider on ILTV. And now, with anti-Semitism on the rise globally in the wake of the Gaza war and near weekly protests in major cities around the world, ILTV's Ariella Lachiani hit the streets of London to find out what Brits think about Israel, the war, and anti-Semitism in the UK. Let's take a look.
Since the start of the Israel-Hamas war, we have seen people worldwide weighing in and giving their opinion on the conflict. But how much does the average person actually know? Are they informed, or are they simply following the crowd of hating Israel? Well, I'm here in London and I'm about to speak to a few people to hear what they think and, more importantly, what they know about the conflict. Let's take a look. Would you consider Hamas a terrorist organization?
As far as I'm aware,
yes. I definitely would class Hamas as a terrorist organization.
yeah.
On the basis that yes, they did take a lot of Israelis hostage, I would say so, yes.
Hamas is a terrorist group and we need to get rid of them, like we did with ISIS and anybody like that.
Do you condemn the attack on 7th of October?
Yes.
Absolutely.
I think it's horrendous. I think it was a terrible crime and Israel has the right to defend themselves.
I would say so, yes. I do condemn that, but I also condemn that, Israel was quite responsible for quite a few casualties there too.
Absolutely.
I completely condemn what they did. It's completely wrong. But then, if you look at the context behind their events, then it somewhat does make sense.
Yes. Yes.
I do condemn that attack, yeah.
Do you think Israel's response has been proportionate?
Absolutely not.
I think maybe in their eyes they see it as proportionate to the outside world. It probably isn't.
How can you respond proportionately to what had happened? So if 200 women were murdered, you go and kill 200 women.
The right for them to defend themselves is being stretched, and that their ability far outweighs the ability of their opponent.
I think all of the actions we've seen recently have been almost a funnel from 75 years.
Israel has the right to defend themselves.
As I think loads of other people have said, what is proportionate response? But I definitely think their objectives of removing as much as they can anyway, the threat of having them there repeating the attacks again and again and again forever, as totally justified.
What do you think would be a proportionate response?
It's a good question.
Specific targeting of Hamas specifically, rather than, the entirety of Gaza.
Go on, gun to gun.
They would have to identify Hamas leaders, Hamas organization, which they're doing now, but they're absolutely making a mess of it. You cannot kill 15,000 civilians in 6 weeks and say this is completely justified. But then there is no easy answer to that question.
I'll be honest, I can't think of one.
I hope that they find a way through this. I'm just not sure that the loss of life is commensurate with what needs to be.
Interesting. And now, in a bit of good news, in an unprecedented collaborative effort, the Israeli Innovation Authority has announced that several government ministries have joined forces to invest over 100 million shekels in the establishment of 9 new regional innovation centers across Israel. The Israel Innovation Authority, together with the Ministry of Economy and Industry, the Ministry of the Negev, Galilee and National Resilience, the Ministry of the Environmental Protection, the Ministry of Agriculture, and the Ministry of Regional Cooperation, announced the launch of the 100 million shekel initiative aimed at fostering entrepreneurship and promoting the high-tech industry in Israel's periphery. 9 new hubs spanning from the Galilee and Golan regions to East Jerusalem to the Negev Desert and the Gaza border region and down to Eilat will encourage growth of new startups with strong regional ties and advanced high-tech employment, leveraging Israel's immense global potential while harnessing the relative advantages of the respective regions. The hubs will operate in innovative technologies including ag tech, food tech, renewable energy, green construction, water technologies, climate tech, and health tech. Dror Bin, CEO of the Israel Innovation Authority, said of the initiative that diversity in technology in terms of industry, geography, and demographics, is a key component of the Israel Innovation Authority's strategy to strengthen Israeli high-tech competitiveness against other innovation hubs worldwide. He added the selected centers will enable the expansion of the entrepreneurship cycle and the employment of high-tech throughout the country and across all sectors, while demonstrating Israeli resilience and the ability to continue innovating. And now, let's take a look at the weather forecast. Partly cloudy skies are expected around most of the country tonight, with lows of around 8 degrees Celsius or 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow we'll get rainy showers around most of the country, alongside steady top temperatures, seeing highs of about 21 degrees Celsius or 69 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's all for today's news. For more updates from Israel on all your devices, check out our ILTV channel, subscribe to our ILTV newsletter, and don't forget to check out our new and improved website, ILTV.tv, with all the latest news from the heart of the State of Israel. I'm Ladarga Velazi. Be well, stay safe, and thank you so much for watching.